Joining me is Jonathan Fluxman from IJAN, who, as we know, protest picket every week outside the Israeli ambassador's residence in Swiss Cottage, where it was outside, and now it's near the station. Can you tell us, Jonathan, what is your situation with the police? Because you sent me something this week that's quite alarming about that, which I'll just show that before you speak so people can see it. Um, you've got this. You managed to get a picture of this thing that's being circulated by the police to local residents. It says, "Dear resident, with the demonstrations at Swiss Cottage ongoing, we are looking to obtain impact statements from anyone willing to provide details on if and how these demonstrations have affected them. If you would be interested in providing an impact statement or would like to learn more, please email us at the below." What is that all about? Can you tell us how you're dealing with the police, how they're dealing with you, whichever way around you want to say it?
Hi, Crispin. Thanks very much for having me on the show. Yeah, so just a quick potted history of our picket. We've been going since October 20th, 2023, so about 2 weeks after the genocide started. Um, we were about 3 months outside the ambassador's residence, which is a little bit down the road from Swiss Cottage station. Then Rishi Sunak appeared outside Downing Street and said the police must clamp down on protesters, and we were banned from outside her residence. We moved up the road to Swiss Cottage outside the library. We're there for about another 2.5, 3 months. Absolutely fine, having our weekly picket with speeches and all kinds of people coming. It's actually a wonderful event because it's so mixed, and we have lots of women and children and people from all backgrounds, races, religions, and none. It's entirely peaceful. And then the Zionists started to turn up, and it was clearly coordinated, and they tried very hard to drive us off the streets. And we resisted this, and using the most disgraceful language and tactics, racist, misogynistic, transphobic, you name it, and physical attacks, complaining to the police, the usual, oh, it's anti-Semitism, you need to arrest them for harassment and intimidation and that. And they succeeded in getting several of us arrested over the last several months.
Yeah.
And then they imposed a section order on us and moved us up the road when there was a religious event at the library, and we've remained there outside the tube entrance. It's now morphed into a situation where we are regularly surveilled by a group of the same people, 5 or 8 people who are masked and hooded, and film our protest every week. Unfortunately, the police, as we've heard, are partisan towards them, almost always come down on the side of the Zionists. If there's any situation that needs a decision on their part, you and people watching your program will know that we've had several arrests up there, Chaim Brashith and Yael Khan and people like that, again on totally spurious charges, usually engineered by the Zionists who come, who plead everything from anti-Semitism to they're getting attacked and harassed and they're getting alarmed. It's funny, the same people appear every week to get alarmed in exactly the same spot of London. So, and we've carried on. We are absolutely determined not to go anywhere. This is a very important protest against the ambassador. That's why we're there, and against the genocide in Gaza. And, our voice as Jews, I think, is very important because it punctures this myth that all Jews support Israel, all Jews support the genocide. And of course, that's rubbish. But we are always airbrushed out of the story. If you look at the press coverage and what the government says and what the police say, they always ignore us, like they did in the run-up to the January 18th demonstrations, a week ago. They only listen to the voices of the pro-Zionist Jews in our community. They just ignored all the anti-Zionist Jews, everybody else in the country, of course, as well. And they don't even mention that there's another view within the Jewish community. And that's just obviously selective and totally intentional, because they want to be able to say that. And what's going on is the government and through the police are using so-called Jewish fears to create the circumstances that they can act against these demonstrations, like they did disgracefully about the synagogue 400 meters away from the BBC.
Yeah.
And they continue to do this. And we saw that in spades on that day. The people who are making these remarks, who are talking about Jewish fears, like the chief rabbi, who's an arch Zionist, he's a person who said all Palestine protesters are terrorist supporters. He says that the ICJ case by South Africa is a perverse moral inversion. And he talks about Israel doing an outstanding thing 3 months into the genocide, when there were tens of thousands of people killed already. And they listen to that sort of voice rather than a counter voice of ourselves and everybody else in the country, really.
Uh, so just about the practical side of your protest. I mean, it's a static one. You don't move. There's no marching.
No.
You've been moved. So you've been moved twice then. So how do they, under what power do they have to move you? I mean, I thought people could demonstrate anywhere. What's that? That's the Public Order Act, is it?
Well, yes, they imposed a section on us. I think it was a section 14, which has now expired. We've remained where we are, and we review our tactics, and increasingly we're talking about moving the protest, doing other things. It has its pros and cons. The pros are we're in the same space, everybody knows where we are, we have a rally with great speeches and so on, and people turn up in order to hear us. The disadvantage is that we are a bit penned in, and that's not very nice, and the visibility is not as good as where we are. But that's under review. So at the moment, we are not legally bound to stay where we are. And as I say, we're busy looking at that.
Right, and do you have a named organizer that they can sort of target, a bit like Chris Nynham got targeted? So I mean, that seems to be an issue as well. If they can actually pounce on someone, and apparently Chris Nynham could be jailed for 6 months.
Yeah, not really. I mean, we have a sort of informal structure within the organization. And I should just say, IJAN is not the only organization. There's also JNP, who are the Jewish Network for Palestine, another anti-Zionist Jewish organization, and they co-sponsor the picket as well. Just so your viewers and listeners know, 3 of our people were either arrested or threatened with arrest before January 18th, because they said things like, we are going to march, at the time of great confusion, and who knew what was happening. One of whom was arrested at home in the middle of the day, and 2 others were, several visits from van loads of police throughout over a 2-day period. It was absolutely, so disproportionate and so over the top. It was just ridiculous, really.
And about that leaflet, I mean, what are you going to do about the police circulating this thing? Is there anything you can do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a bit of a joke. I like to call it the police petition against the picket. It's an invitation. If you look at the wording, you know, um, impact statements are usually used by victims of crime, and it's an invitation to the local community to write in and say, oh, how unhappy they are and how badly affected they've been by this protest, which is just such rubbish. What the Zionists like to say is that Swiss Cottage is a Jewish area, and why are we picketing there? And that's wrong on so many levels. One, we are Jews who are leading this picket and organizing it. 2, the demographics of Swiss Cottage are quite interesting, actually. The vast majority of the population is either Christian or atheist, no religion. Jews make up 11% of the population and Muslims 10%. So, it's just a ridiculous argument. But what we would like people to do is to write in to that email address. And if you go to our Instagram account, we've reproduced the notice, as well as some suggestions about what people might want to say in their emails. And I'd appeal to everybody on the call, please write in, support the demonstration, say that it's positive, it's a voice of Palestine or pro-Palestine people when the mass media are just suppressing it and so on. And, we'd very much like people to support us in that way.